Good morning to everyone from DC and from out of town. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Hassan Oliver. Welcome to the Cameroon American Council press conference, recommendations on the United States Africa Leaders Summit. I'm an active comedian currently under the management of Empak Corp, which is located out in New Jersey. Empak Corp is the sponsor of this event. As we know, Africans are contributing immensely in the United States. We ask that all not left behind when it comes down to immigrant and reform. As acting as a comedian, I can do whatever I want to do to try to help this situation and creating awareness to support the African diaspora. I would like to introduce the president of the Cameroon American Council, Ms. Sylvia Bello.
Thank you so much, Hassan. The truth is we do need all our creatives and our creative types to work on advocacy because they just know more on how to push an agenda and how to push a message. Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvie Bello with the Cameroon American Council. We are so thrilled and really honored that you made it down to DC, and for those of you already in DC, that you made it out today in your very busy schedule, especially with vacations and everything else. But we are here for a really big and important reason, because this entire year at the Cameroon American Council and with our friends, our allies, the African immigrants throughout the 30 states that we have presence in, as well as throughout the country. We have been working on getting President Obama to include immigration reform when he met last week with the presidents from the continent of Africa. Unfortunately, the president did not include immigration reform. We're happy that he did meet with the presidents. We are happy that he did include the diaspora through his civil society forums, so we can say we got half of what we requested. Half is not bad, so that's why we want to make some strong recommendations for him that we know would make America stronger, for one, and also make our diaspora community stronger and contribute on the continent as well. And today we're going to go down the five. We're going to go down the 5 recommendations. I'm just going to read them quickly. One is to get President Obama to meet with African immigrants and our allies to discuss immigration reform. That way he can get a sense of who we are, what we do, how we contribute, but especially what are our challenges, so he can fill the gaps. The second one is to get Congress, and ultimately to get Congress to create a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus. We know that Congress was really instrumental in making sure that our voices were heard, especially Congressman Jose Serrano out of the Bronx and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke out of Brooklyn, who worked very hard with a community that may or may not fully understand the workings of Congress. So we put a lot of maybe unduly pressures or just gaps in us understanding how the process works. But they were very patient with our underserved community and taught us a lot. So we are hoping that both Congressman Jose Serrano and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, along with the 35 members of Congress who signed the letter to the president, would take this experience and create a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus that will focus on our African needs. The third is to have African immigrants recognized through as part of the national discussion. You know, we have different states and the jurisdiction here in DC that recognizes our African challenges and contributions. We would like for the reauthorization of House Resolution 369 that proclaims and recognizes September as National African Immigrant Heritage Month. This is, again, something from Congress. And we would like to announce that in September, this September, from the 25th to the 30th, we are going to have a legislative week. And finally, The president, during the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit, focused on trade. The fact of the matter is, when we have our papers, we can do so much more. So the biggest trade law that relates to Africa is AGOA, and AGOA will be coming up for reauthorization next year. We are going to go back to Congressman Jose Serrano and go back to Congresswoman Yvette Clarke and the 35 members of Congress, and hopefully by then we'll have a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus and ask them to include immigration reform within AGOA. So to expand on these 5 recommendations, please join me in welcoming Dominic Tamin of Empak Corp. Dominic is just a strong advocate. His organization and his corporation has sponsored many of our events and many African immigrant events out in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Newark, New Jersey, and right here in Washington, D.C., including this particular event. So please join me in welcoming Dominic. He's going to talk about why it's important that the United States Congress includes a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ms. Bello, for doing such a great job supporting the African diaspora. And I want to thank you all for being here today. I would personally like to thank everyone for being here today to support the African diaspora in the United States. As we know, U.S. African Summit was successful. This will potentially bring millions of dollars in African continent, potentially could be billions as well. However, the president failed to discuss certain issues that were affecting us as African immigrant. Okay, I would like to go over some contribution that Africans are actually contributing here in the United States. Per U.S. Census, African immigrant are not only the most educated immigrant when upon arrival into the United States, their first and second generation offsprings are also the most educated in America. So in order to fully fulfill President Obama's vision of American outperforming, out-innovating the rest of the world, President Obama needs to engage the most educated community, which is the African diaspora. I would like to talk about a diversity visa. Okay, I'm a recipient of a diversity visa. That's how I actually, came to the United States. The diversity visa is a lottery, also known as the Green Card Lottery, that was eliminated from the bill, the recent bill, which was put in place about 2 years ago. Diversity visa lottery was put in place in 1990 to allow countries with low immigrant inflows to come to the United States. This is one of the few and easiest ways that African immigrant can legally enter the United States. We are requesting for the diversity visa to be reinstated back into the bill. Hopefully we can get that done by the end of the year. We are working with the Gang of 8 to make this happen. Also, during the U.S. Summit, the New York City Council, representing 8 million New Yorkers, passed a resolution to ask President Obama to include immigration discussion when he met with the 47th African president on August 4th through the 8th, at which the time he failed to discuss immigration reform affecting Africans in America. As a result, the African leaders and the Cameroon American Council are requesting that the president to include Africans in immigration discussion during African Heritage Month, which is September. In addition, we're asking for creation of a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus that will be dedicated to voicing and advancing through legislative process issues that affect Africans in the United States and its territories. Let me briefly explain, go over some of the history of engaging diaspora and foreign dignitaries on immigration. On May 3rd, 2013, President Obama was in Mexico, and in his speech, he discussed the relationship of USA and Mexico. President Obama talked about the contribution Mexicans who migrated to USA have made and why immigration reform is critical for Mexico and USA. On March 14, 2014, the Irish Prime Minister of Ireland came to the White House, and immigration was part of the agenda. And as the Irish Prime Minister puts it, we've got 50,000 Irish immigrants here in America, undocumented, and what we want is a process of legalization where they can pay their taxes, pay their way, raise their family, travel home, and also come back. On April 25th, 2014, President Obama was in South Korea, where he discussed the merits of comprehensive immigration reform during his week-long trip to Asia. And on May 3rd, 2014, exactly 1 year since the president made his immigration pitch in Mexico, Vice President Biden celebrated immigrant and children of immigrants at a graduation in Miami. He later met with Caribbean American business leaders at the Jamaican Island restaurant to discuss the impact of immigration in the Caribbean community. We're extremely happy that the President Obama is engaging other diaspora when it comes to immigration reform. By no means should he stop. All we want is for him to also engage the African community to make sure that we are part of this discussion. And we're asking to meet with the president directly so he can address this issue with us as well. Again, this is real dear to my heart. I believe that all of us needs to be treated equally and fairly. And so the fact that Africans are the most educated immigrant in the United States, we need to, that counts, doesn't it? Yeah, it counts a lot. And I believe that if we are going to outperform the world, we must include the African diaspora, you know, in the mathematics, science, and if I'm leaving any other field, arts, yes. I've been here for about 18 years now, 18, you know, and I've seen a lot of growth within the community. You know, we have Africans who are entrepreneurs, hair braiders, actually giving jobs to our community. You know, people who have actually worked hard to take care of the family and also sending money back home. I believe that's called remittances. And we send lots of money back home, you know, and the lawyers, doctors. So all we need is equality, you know, in terms of immigration as well, and also other issues to affect that is affecting African immigrant. And we're also requesting again the Congressional African Immigrant Caucuses that would engage the African diaspora, because we have problems too. You know, we have problems too. So we must make sure that we let the president know that we must, again, have that. We have the Hispanic caucuses. We have other caucuses that is benefiting certain diaspora, and we're asking the same for the African community and for the African people. Again, I want to thank you guys for being here today, and Ms. Sylvie Bello has actually been great in voicing the opinion and also supporting the African diaspora. I would love for you to continue doing that. And as CEO of Empak Corporation, I will continue to do my best to make sure that our voice are heard, you know. Even though sometimes it's the last minute, I still get up and come, you know. So I want to thank you guys for being here. I also want to thank Hassan Oliver, who, again, is part of the Empak Corporation team, who is under Empak Corp's management, you know, led by an African immigrant. I want to thank Mr. Rowe, my good side, who has been very helpful in making sure that this gets seen, you know. And I also want to thank Marcy for being here today, and everybody else who contributed. I know you guys took time out to come here because we all have a common goal. And the common goal is to make sure that the African people are heard. Thank you. And I would like to bring Ms. Bello, Sylvie Bello, the president of Cameroon American Council, back up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Yes, we do contribute, and that's the reason why Congress, especially those districts that have high concentrations of Africans, places such as New York City, Boston, Minnesota, right here in Washington, D.C., California, Texas, we are going to be reaching out to them, and letting them know that that the Africans in their districts are making a lot of contributions, and that we do want an African immigrant caucus. If you noticed, lots of parts of Bronx, lots of parts of Harlem, Staten Island have tons and tons of businesses that went up after the riot. They had their heydays, and unfortunately, after the riot, after Dr. King was assassinated, the city of New York was just not registering any kinds of tax dollars in most parts of these areas, including D.C., Minnesota, and in some neighborhoods, like 125th, for instance, in Harlem, right here in D.C. on U Street, African immigrants moved in and revitalized those neighborhoods. And now, with gentrification, they're being kicked out. So we as Africans are contributing. So we're going to go back to Congress and let them know that we are improving your neighborhoods. We are making your neighborhoods look good. We are increasing your graduation rates because of the most educated Americans. We would love for you to work with us and focus on us and have a Congressional African Immigrant Caucus. So we really thank Dominic Tammin for that presentation and for sponsoring this event and the many events you have and initiatives you've sponsored, including the DV Lottery song by Major Money, who's your artist. Our next presenter Our next presenter is Sapna. Sapna is my colleague, and Sapna is with many languages, one voice. And right here in DC, we actually already celebrate African Heritage Month. And Sapna will talk to us about, why is it important for nationally for us to celebrate that, and why some of the challenges that we face and that her organization is working with. So please welcome Sapna, my colleague and comrade in the immigrant fight.
Thank you so much, Sylvie, and thank you to all of you that are gathered here this morning. And I am Sapna Pandya. I'm the director of Many Languages, One Voice, and we are a local nonprofit right here in the district. We administer what's called the DC Language Access Coalition. And so as Sylvie mentioned, there are a lot of examples we feel right here in the district that could be and should be expanded to the rest of the country. One example is what Sylvie mentioned, which is the African Heritage Month and African Heritage Day that ends up being celebrated every year. There also was recently instituted an African Health Fair that's been started as well, thanks very largely in part to Sylvie's advocacy and the advocacy of the Cameroon American Council. So these are examples right here in DC of a district that unfortunately is not even recognized as a state, and we don't have a voting representative, but these are examples that could be very easily replicated in other parts of the country where there is a sizable African community. With African Heritage Day, the importance of that is having hundreds, and I remember a couple years ago when we were there, myself, my staff, and the young people, African immigrant youth that we work with, coming out there. It was a sense of celebration, a sense of unity, and most of all, what was really exciting was a sense of unity across language and ethnic group. We don't see that often. I myself belong to the South Asian community that speaks many different languages, and we don't get a chance to come together across those language groups. In an African Heritage Day, the power of the entire African continent comes together, and that's really amazing to see right here in the district. I mentioned many languages, so I just want to highlight in DC in particular. And again, I do think that the district is a microcosm for other places, such as New York, New Jersey, other areas that Sylvie mentioned that have a significant African immigrant community. In DC, we have the largest Ethiopian and Eritrean community outside of Ethiopia and Eritrea. So the district is home to a large Ethiopian and Eritrean community. We're also home to a large West African community and North African community. So just in that, we're already talking about several different languages that are spoken in all of those countries. And in DC, 10 years ago, we passed a law here. Advocates got together as part of the DC Language Access Coalition and passed a law which requires government agencies to give you an interpreter or to give you translated documents, or a combination of both, depending on what. So what does that mean? What does that look like? If I'm going to get Medicaid, for example, or if I'm going to ride the bus, or if I'm going to pick up a license so that I can start a business, all of those things should be provided to me, help should be provided to me in French, in Amharic, in Tigrinya, in Arabic, in any other language that's spoken in Africa, and also spoken by African immigrant communities here. And so that's significant because it allows access to so many more people that otherwise wouldn't be able to start a business, get healthcare, or go to school, for example, right? So that is an example. We're very happy to share what our law looks like here and how you can just frankly take that language and copy it into something on a national level, which would be super exciting to see. I'm going to just talk about the next generation really briefly as well, because not only are we talking about folks who have come here 20 or 30 years ago that, as has been mentioned, have provided so much back to the United States, but also young people who are coming here at age, from starting as babies. We work with teenagers who are anywhere from age about 13 or 14 to age 20, 21, 22. These are youth who are going to be our next generation here, who are going to be who are already taking up leadership positions and are going to continue to shape this country, right? By 2042, we're going to be a majority minority country, and many of those minorities are going to be African immigrants. So what we really hope for is that these young people who are currently English language learners, who are in school right now, trying to learn, trying to get a good education, trying to go on to college or get a good job, are given the assistance to do so. And unfortunately, many of them don't have that opportunity. I just had a young person come back this summer. Usually most of the students come back in the summer. And this is a very bright African immigrant young person who did graduate from high school here in the district, went on to college, and ultimately found that he just couldn't afford to stay in college, right? As we all know, the rising tuition costs. He came back to DC, he had to drop college halfway and come back, and now he's enrolling in a community college here in DC. Already right there, his future has shifted significantly, right? He was going to a pretty well-known college out of state, and that would have looked different on your resume as opposed to coming back to DC. And nothing against our local community colleges here, it's just how it's looked at in the workplace, having a degree from UDC as opposed to a big state school somewhere else. That's what he's going to have instead. And the main reason why is because of the tuition cost. He just frankly could not afford it. His parents are immigrants from Ethiopia and are just not able to afford to help him either. Whereas a lot of other kids might have that kind of help. This young man doesn't have that. So who am I talking about? In DC, 1 out of 10 students are in the position that this young man is. English language learner students who are themselves trying to learn English so that they can be able to access all the opportunities that this country has to offer. Their parents are trying to help them and engage in the school system, but without provision of translation and interpretation in the schools, they're not able to get that help. And that is, unfortunately, even with the law here in DC, what we're seeing. So you can just imagine in the rest of the country where there is also no law. I was speaking to a colleague earlier from New Jersey. It all has to be case by case, right? Every time you have someone who speaks, let's say, French or Tigrinya or Amharic or what have you, you have to go and say, I need help for this person, I need help for that person. We need systemic fixes to this. And that's going to start by law and policy, but it's going to continue because of enforcement. And that's where we need a lot of support from Congress and from the president to continue to have that kind of enforcement and monitoring. And one last thing I'm going to mention, which is healthcare. Again, given the changes in healthcare law recently, what's been challenging in the district in DC has been implementation. And again, a lot of that has to do with language. Because if you go to, let's say, sign up for the healthcare exchange, you need to be able to do that in your language. There are healthcare navigators all over the city, but unfortunately very few that speak African immigrant languages or languages spoken by African immigrants, right? And so if someone is trying to change, let's say, from one plan to another, how can you do that if you don't have someone that can help you in your language to do that? How can you do that when the form is not translated in your language? And again, in DC, that's the law, so it should be happening. And if the government is not doing that for you, they are actually breaking the law. But it's up to us to call that out and to say, hey, you're supposed to do this. This form has to be translated, right? So again, I'm happy to share other examples, but I want to really recognize Sylvie and her advocacy, the advocacy of the Cameroon American Council, and all the African immigrant community groups here around in DC and around the country that are frankly operating with very limited funds and resources, but still able to raise their voices. And that's tremendous to see that, except we need the support from the top level, from the federal level as well, to back a lot of that up. And one really important way of doing that is to have an African Immigrant Caucus so that we're able to bring those voices and bring those concerns to basically an ombudsman that can help raise those voices to the federal level. So thank you again for your time. Really appreciate Sylvie inviting me this morning, and wish all of us lots of luck in our goals that we're trying to reach for the African immigrant community.
Thank you, Sapna. Yes, yes, yes. As African immigrants, we are both Black and immigrant. So right there, we have potentials of having strong allies, right, who are immigrant advocates or who are Black advocates, or allies who really feel that a strong America includes us as melting pot. So yes, when we can speak, when we have access to language, we can improve DC, and we can improve New York, we can improve New Jersey, and really the entire United States. So we are really hoping that our recommendation of having an immigrant caucus, having a National African Immigrant Heritage Month, that nationally Congress would reintroduce this bill. Sapna mentioned healthcare, which is so critical. As African immigrants, we know the statistics. We're the most educated Americans, yet when you compare our population with other highly educated population, our health disparity is terrible, bottom. And the reason is because of language, is because of immigration status, is because of just cultural sensitivity, actually the lack of cultural sensitivity, the lack of religious sensitivity, and just overall not knowing mainstream healthcare system here in America. So one of the things why we want to meet with President Obama is for him to meet Africans who are also undocumented. When President Obama gave his very important speech in El Paso, Texas, actually his first speech on immigration in El Paso, Texas, he named out immigrants from 6 continents and forgot the largest of them. We wrote to the White House and we let them know that you are not going to do that when, as African immigrants, you're counting on us, the most educated, group, to outperform and out-innovate the rest of the world. So the White House said, you know what? We are going to keep that in mind. We apologize. The following year, which was last year, in 2013, the president gave his second most important speech on immigration reform. This was in Las Vegas. This time around, they reached out to a number of African immigrant organizations and invited us to meet with the president in Las Vegas while he was giving this speech. And we asked the question, are you going to make sure that the president, we asked the White House a question, are you going to make sure that the president mentions us? They said, well, we're going to try, we're going to send it out to our policy people, who are going to send it out to the president, who are going to send it out to the speechwriters. They give us like all this long spiel about, who does what. We're like, oh, okay. We were sitting in Las Vegas, 20 of us sitting in Las Vegas, and the president started naming all the different, folks from around the world who are contributing in America. And guess what? The president forgot to mention Africans as well. Again. We want the president to meet with us. That way, it would show a broad coalition of immigrants that are contributing. And right now, we want to bring up my little sister, I will call her. Her older sister was actually my classmate. But she is a survivor in every sense of the word, a strong advocate. I've come to rely on her on a lot of health policy issues, health advocacy issues. And she will talk about some of the things that we're facing. If we're undocumented, if we need access to health and other health, not just health, housing and other issues that we need access to because we're already paying for it through our tax dollars, and her work that has inspired her from her own experience. And this is the strong examples that we would like for the president to meet with Africans all around the country and to get a sense of how immigration reform is a determinant of every single aspect of our life. Please join me in welcoming Iya. Please, please. And Iya is with the Iya Project.
So, hi, everybody. Hi, CV. Thank you for having me here today. Matt, thanks for being here. Everybody, appreciate your presence. So, again, my name is Iya Bikundo Granatella, and I am founder of the EA Foundation. What the EA Foundation does is pretty much promote awareness of kidney disease and organ donation. I am a recipient of a kidney. God bless my mom. In 2005, she donated one of her kidneys to me. And that was after living with kidney disease for about 10 years. I came into the United States on a medical visa in 2000. Unfortunately, I ran out of my visa status. So I was undocumented for a little bit. And I had to wait 5 years without papers, on dialysis, even though my mom was a total match and was able to donate one of her kidneys to me. Why? Because I didn't have any kind of insurance coverage. Fast forward a few years later. In 2005, like I said, I got a new lease on life by getting a transplant from my mom. Since then, fast forward a little bit further, I've gone to school, I'm working, I'm paying my bills, I'm paying my taxes. All I'm trying to say is that Africans are not a liability. We're asking the president and his team to engage with us Africans a little more. We're asking President Obama to meet with us and hear us out. The EA Foundation, through its program, the EA Project, has done a lot of advocacy work in the past 2 years. We've gone around, especially in the state of New Jersey, where we're from, doing awareness campaigns on kidney disease as well as organ donation. As you may know already, kidney disease is the 8th leading cause of death in the United States. And the people at the most risk are Blacks. Also, for your knowledge, is that 60% of the people in the United States will become victims to kidney disease. One, because of the prevalence of diabetes and the prevalence of high blood pressure, which are the 2 leading causes of kidney disease. And guess what? 1.6 Africans make part of the United States population. Guess what? Again, we are at risk. The more we have resources presented to us, the more we can be able to give back to our communities, the more we can be able to reach back, and the less liability will become to the United States and its people. All I'm trying to say is that we beckon President Obama to give us more chances to become documented, to make our people legal so they can live their lives, live the American dream, pay their taxes, be able to go back to their countries, go back to Cameroon, and be able to improve their countries and many other African countries. So we're joining today CV Bello and the Cameroon American Council, as well as Empak Corp, to again beckon the president and his team to engage with the African people a little more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Iya. And there are many, many, many examples throughout the country on African immigrants who have lifted up themselves up, who have contributed and have continued to help others as well. And so that was our third recommendation. Our fourth recommendation is to get President Obama, is to establish September as African Immigrant Heritage Month, but specifically a legislative week. So from September 25th to the 30th, we are announcing that from the 25th to the 30th, we're going to have a legislative week. On the 25th, we're going to be in Congress and doing a lobby day, telling Congress all the different things that we want them to do and hearing from them what they're working on so we can take it back home. in the community so we can support them, because they also need help. Or even if they don't need help, they need us to understand what they're doing. That way we can better disseminate the information in our community, because a lot of times they say they don't know where to reach us, even though we're paying taxes in their districts. So, so the 25th to the 30th. And to help us understand why a legislative week is critical and how we've engaged government, please allow me to bring my mentor, my colleague, someone that I met many, many years ago doing this work. And it turns out she is the auntie of my good friend. The world cannot be this small. And she's going to explain to us how her community in Newark, New Jersey, engaged your local politician, and this politician is now in the United States Congress. And so she's going to talk to us how that was done and why it's so critical for us to engage the federal government legislatively. Please join me in welcoming Marcy Phillips of the African American Alliance, and she's also with the Newark African Commission. Marcy Phillips.
Good morning. Thank you, Sylvia. Sylvie Bello, thank you. That's who we need here in the United States. My name is Marcy Phillips, President of African and American Alliance and the Vice President of Newark African Commission. Okay. I'm going to explain you guys a little bit, briefly the detail how we've been working in Newark. Today we will say thank you to the mayor. Today he's become the senator. He was the mayor at that time. Senator Cory A. Booker. 2004, we were all in the community. Yes, he had a vision, so we had an organization called African American Alliance. The whole community was engaged. And once he got to the city, we asked again to make sure for us to go to the next level. So that's how he engaged the Newark African Commission through the city of Newark. And at that point, we went to the next level by doing all the festival in the city of Newark. By being in the city, we had the opportunity not to pay for anything. They were sponsoring us, so we were part of the government. And if I remember, at that time, President Obama was supporting us. At that time, he was a senator. Do you guys see all the people we've been dealing with? All of them grow up. That means we have to grow up as well. We in the nonprofit, now we have the commission in the city, we need to go to the federal. Today, Senator Booker is become a senator. We can't even do the commission no more. We can't even do the festival no more because we have no fund. Since he became a senator, well, Newark is over. No, we here. We are coming to DC to make sure he let President Obama know the African community need to move up further, up in all level. Sylvie Bello, please keep doing the work. We support you. We will be here as many times as possible, whenever you need us. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to come for the Liberian again in DC. We already did that last time with the Congressman Donna Penn. And as a matter of fact, we're having a meeting today at 4:30, no later than 5. So from here today, from Washington, D.C., we're going again to meet with him to make sure we do advocate and all the legislative, all the senators, all the elected officials knows what African people need. You guys know African people are lovely people. They just don't understand the language. They have their culture. And like one of our colleagues said, we need that translation. We need to understand each other instead of making fun to our people. They got a lot to put on the table. Definitely they do. So at this point, President Obama and Cory Booker, who is in the Senate right here in Washington, D.C., we are coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we're sorry they could not get the Ivorian flag. Marcy Phillips is from Ivory Coast. And so the National Press Club, FYI, get the Ivorian flag. So that is so critical for us to take what has been established in Newark over the years, since 2004, to the federal level. So we're going to be doing a legislative week. It's going to go from the 25th to the 30th. On the 25th, we're going to be in Congress doing a massive lobby day on the 25th. And then on the 30th, we're going to be doing a White House briefing at the White House. So hopefully that's a wonderful opportunity for the president. We're going to be right there in his house to engage with us, or anytime within the month of September. I want to bring someone who is part of the Cameroon American Council, is also part of the Cameroon Royal Council, and is really doing a lot to engage, because a lot of times the federal level, they say they don't know how to reach us. They don't know where our churches are. They don't know where our mosques are. They don't know where our leaders are. You know, that's what they keep saying. So please join me in welcoming Patience Bassa, who has been so strong in getting our embassies together, getting our leaders, our royal councils, which is when we talk about cultural sensitivity, folks just need to know that, they're chiefs in Africa, right? And they're royalties, and there's a lot of messaging that if our royal councils understand, they can pass it way better to us in a culturally sensitive way. So we're going to need President Obama, as he's thinking about how does he engage Americans about immigration reform. He needs to think about, specifically about our community and the different layers within our community. And Ms. Patience Bassa will also talk to us about some of the immigration issues that need to come to the table. Thank you. Please welcome Patience Bassa of the Cameroon Royal Council.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patience Bassa. I'm the Vice President of Cameroon Royal Council, and I also work at the Embassy of Cameroon. I think I'll just talk about education here, because even from the cultural level, we are educating our children. Because we are here, like my children, they came here when they were 12 or 13 years old, 12 and 13 years old. So they knew a little bit about our culture in Cameroon. By coming here and mingling with American children, they forget about our culture. So what we are trying to do in Cameroon Royal Council is to teach our children about our culture, because some of them were born here. Some came when they were grown up and stuff like myself. I still know about my culture because I came here an adult. But for the children who were born here and who came here when they were just little, if we parents, we don't help them to learn about our culture, they will never know. So this September, everything that concerns Africa, I like to involve myself in it and help I can call her my daughter, because I saw her when she was born. I was working with her mother in the airlines company in my country. And so when she was a baby, I saw her. And I came here and I met her. Just from her name, I asked her, who are your parents? And she told me, my mom is. I said, you know that? I work with your mom. So from then, every time that she has an event and I have a little time to attend to it, I do my best. I was late, but I came. That's the main thing, to support her. I'll talk a little bit about what, when I was coming in, she was talking about education. My younger daughter, she graduated in 2009. She has a bachelor in 2009. But because I work at the embassy, our children don't have any help from the government. But they are also here as other children who needed to be educated, who are working and paying taxes like the other children. But we don't have any grant, any help from the government. Even from the banks, you cannot take a loan because you are an embassy staff or a diplomat. But I've already written twice to the president. I wrote to him, I wrote to his wife when, I'm receiving letters from them. I wrote and I tell them about my concern, but I think they don't get it. But we need them to understand that even if we are working in embassies, we are still here in America, and we need our children to get the same education as others. When my daughter graduated in 2009, she told me, "Mom, I know your salary is not that great. You cannot help me for my master's. I'm going to work for 2 years and then go to try to get my master's." 2 years, she did not get a job. The third year, she got a job and she registered to American University. And then she went to her manager and said, "I need 1.5 hours on Monday, 1.5 on Tuesday to go to school. And then the other 3 days of the week, I'll cover up for the 3 hours." You know what? They fired her. They fired her. But she has already paid part of her tuition at the American University, and I helped her also. But as we couldn't pay all of it, she has to drop off after 1 semester. Now, she has to pay a debt for classes that she did not attend to before she could register again next year. And she lost all her credits. This is unfair, because with the policy of here that every child has to be educated, how are they helping our own children, us working in the embassies? We are here, that it's been 18 years that I'm here, and 14 for my children. But they cannot go back home now because the education where it's not the same. How can I say it? We're not culture where what they are learning here is not the same as in Africa now. They cannot go back there because they are older, but they need to have their masters like all the other children here, their PhD as other children here. But how can they have that if the government cannot help them? So I'm happy to be here today to support Sylvie. If my voice and my other brothers and sisters who spoke before me, if our voices can be heard up there so that they take care of all children coming from America, Africa, Asian, or elsewhere. Not only one particular community, but every community, mostly Africans, because I know we do a lot here to make America grow. And we need that help to take it back home so that we can make our own countries grow also. Thank you.
African immigrant priorities are not embedded in the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act is wonderful, really, really wonderful for the Latino community. The DREAM Act is exceptional for the Asian community. It is not for the African community. Most Africans come here older, so a lot of times they age out. Same with the Caribbean community. So education is critical for the US government. You would think the US government will look at their top, highest ranking population. As African immigrants, we're the most educated when we get to the country and most educated when we stay in the country. So we definitely need to make sure that African immigrant priorities are included within the DREAM Act, within Dakar, and also within the education system in general. Because if we're going to outperform and out-innovate the rest of the world, we're going to need everyone with us. The last priority is AGOA, which I'm going to speak on. We want President Obama and Congress to prioritize immigration within the reauthorization of AGOA. Clearly, last week, we saw everything that took place was about trade and investment, which is wonderful. But do you know that all the trade combined that leaves America to Africa and vice versa is 50 billion? As African immigrants, we send 60 billion back home. So President Obama, where are your priorities, right? Imagine if the 60 billion we send back home was rerouted, right? Was customized, our capacities were built, but most importantly, we had our papers in order to further trade, to further investment within the United States and also back home. The president has said over and over that his number one priority is export. Well, President Obama, we're doing just that. So if you include immigration reform, if folks, intelligent folks like Mrs. Bassa's daughter, who are studying science, technology, engineering, and math, the careers of the future, are studying arts, and studying many of the other fields that are critical for our survival as number one in the world, for America to be number one in the world, you would want to include immigration. And this is not the first time having immigration and trade. It has happened many, many times before. The various presidents of the United States have signed trade agreements that include immigration within it. So asking President Obama to include a provision for immigration, to publicize a provision for immigration and work with Congress to have immigration included within the AGOA when it comes up for reauthorization next year is so critical. Take, for instance, the J-1 visa. As Africans, we have the lowest percentages of J-1 visa. We're not asking for 80%. We're just asking for a percentage that's proportional to our community and the contributions we make. The J-1 visas are the short-term visas. The H-1B visas. Last week, we had many, many American multinationals claiming they're going to invest in Africa. We want to let them know, right before you go invest in Africa, would you not want an employee who is culturally sensitive, has language appropriateness, that can work with American degrees but understand the culture? Would that not make sense? Would you then not find it necessary to allocate visas specifically for those Africans? Not because you're doing us a favor, but because your bottom line depends on having an employee who is not going to complain of mosquitoes when they're supposed to be drilling, right? Who's not going to be complaining of the heat when they're supposed to be doing accounting, right? So we are asking all these multinationals who made promises of investment that they should consider allocating visas for the African immigrants who already are Americans and all they need are papers to move to the next level. That's what we're asking them to do. One of the other provisions within AGOA that we want to ask is to take the example of MasterCard. MasterCard makes tons of money in Africa, and they're great corporate citizens for Africa. The MasterCard Foundation, unlike other corporations, do not just go into the villages and pay tuition for primary education. What they do is they identify you. They look at the skill gap that are needed for your particular area. And then they bring you and pay for your F1 student tuition. Not just, $50 to go to primary school and take pictures. They pay thousands of dollars for American education. That's what MasterCard Foundation does. And these are in some of the great schools that my colleague Sapna mentioned, some of the great state schools, such as Arizona State University, such as Stanford, such as UC Berkeley. These are some of the schools that MasterCard will pay your F1 tuition from Africa to build the capacity. Then what do? They provide you with internships. They provide you with mentorships so that you can then go back to your country and have not just the education, but you have the skill set. We're asking many of the other corporations who made claims last week to step up to those claims by building the capacity. That is what we want to see. We want to make sure that immigration reform and the many, many determinants within the African community will be included in AGOA. That is our fifth and last point for our recommendations. And we are really, really excited that you are all here. And today listening was, or is, Matt Alpert out of Congressman Jose Serrano, our very good friend. And he said he wanted to listen and give a little bit of remarks or welcome or hello, greetings.
I don't have any prepared remarks or anything. I'm just here on behalf of the Congressman's office to say hello. Congressman represents a large African immigrant community in the Bronx, New York, and to say that our office is here to listen and help when we can. Thank you.
We're excited that that the congressman, who represents a community in the Bronx of 250 Africans, 250,000 Africans in the Bronx, tons and tons of Guineans. The Bronx has about 80 mosques. These are African mosques. Many, many shops, many, many hair braiders. And he actually represents the largest, in terms of congressional district, of Africans. So we're really, really looking onto the congressman to help us navigate the system, which he has been doing. We're going to need him to help us navigate it even more. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke is a wonderful, wonderful colleague to the congressman, and together they wrote the letter to the White House and mobilized 35 of their colleagues. So between and she's out of Brooklyn. Congressman Payne, wonderful friend, Congressman Payne Jr., as well, out of Newark, and Congressman Charlie Rangel, who actually hosted a breakfast to discuss African immigrants. He said, you know what is this about? What is going on? What is the president doing? How can we discuss it? And we had a breakfast with him. And then he said, guess what? I'm going to bring I'm going to bring the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, to talk about this. And that way you can ask them directly. That's what Congressman Charlie Randall does. So that's why it's great to have seniority, right? You can just pull people out of their states and they come meet you up in New York. And he brought Congressman Meeks, who's also in New York, but some folks from out of town were Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, Terry Sedwell out of Alabama, Congressman Payne, who just made the trip short ride from Newark, New Jersey, Congressman John Lewis out of Atlanta. He had 10 folks who came out. So we are working with Congress, but we still need help. We still clearly, we asked the president to include immigration reform, and he had a forum for diaspora, which means it just gives us another opportunity again to engage Congress so that we can get the complete requests done. So half out of, it's not bad, right? So we know that Congress is helping us, and we know that the White House is receptive, and now we're just gonna make sure that our recommendations are heard. Again, I just wanna thank MLove, I wanna thank the Cameroon American Council, thank the African American Alliance, the EAR Project, and especially thank our very generous sponsor, Dominic Tamin of Empak Corp.
Wow, Miss Sylvie Bello, you are a remarkable young lady. I also watch you grow. Wow. As I heard my mother, spoke, it touched my heart, and I will make a commitment today to do all we can, to make sure that our voice is heard. Okay, whatever it is that needs to be done, I am going to work with Sylvie and I'm going to work with Marcy, and I have Hassan Oliver, and Sabna, excuse me for the Sabna, right? We're going to reach out to everyone that we can possibly get in contact with, to make sure that the voice of the African people are heard. Ms. Bello, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to work with you. It actually opened my eyes, I was never into advocacy. I was an entrepreneur. When I met this young lady, she actually explained to me about DV lottery, which I didn't really know anything about DV lottery because I know as a green card. That's how I came here. So when she mentioned to me that green card is the same as DV lottery, which is diversity visa lottery, I was being limited from the bill. That got me involved. And as I got involved into it, I realized there are other things that is being left behind. In addition, knowing that the Africans, which I didn't know that, I had to do some research that Africans are the most educated people in the United States with degrees, bachelors. And the fact that we're left behind is not fair. It's not fair at all. How do you equate? Usually people with a higher education should also be equivalent with everybody else. But it's the opposite. We are at the bottom. We're at the bottom, and we as African people, we must come together. This is a start, and it's not going to end here, okay? We are going to do whatever we can to make sure that our voices are heard, and that we're requesting that the president meet with the African diaspora and implement or put congressional immigrant caucus in place so we can voice our opinion what's affecting us, African immigrant, here in the United States and other territories as well, because we're as important as everybody else. I want to thank you all for being here today. I just had to come one more time based on hearing what my mom had to say. I love my mother dearly. And when I hear you guys talk, I take it personal, And thank you, and thank you.
And that is why we want President Obama to make sure that during the legislative week for September 25th to the 30th, he meets with African immigrants, or he can pick a day, any day that month. This year is a really special year. The theme, which has been recognized by 30 governors around the country, including states such as Minnesota and Wisconsin, is agriculture. This theme was inspired by the AU, the African Union. This year, the AU declared 2014 as the year of agriculture and food security. As Africans in America, our members, friends, and allies across the country decided to include agriculture as part of the theme for 2014 for the National African Immigrant Heritage Month. And it goes as such: Africans in agriculture, careers, conservation, culture, and cuisine. And we hope that you will join us as we celebrate African Immigrant Heritage Month, as we celebrate the jobs within agriculture, such as food scientists, such as chefs, such as agroeconomists, and the many, many careers, conservationists, foresters within agriculture, as we celebrate conservation, as we celebrate being green for us as Africans in America and for the continent, as we celebrate culture. The State Department actually has a culinary ambassadorship. So culture within agriculture is very important. And finally, agriculture and food. From the many foods around the continent of Africa, and how can we incorporate them here in America? And we're thrilled that this September as well, the Cameroon American Council will be unveiling our African food in the DC school system, which was a partnership between the United States Department of Agriculture, the DC school system, and the testing was done by Howard University, the prestigious Howard University Food Science Department. We are looking forward to introducing this September jollof rice, kata chicken, and African-style spinach to the DC public school system. Thank you again, and we thank all of our honored allies and advocates who came in today. Have a great day, and forward African immigrants.